Do you want to go see if mom and dad have a beer in their fridge in the garage that we haven't had? Like a Amber or Sam Adams Hazy? Yeah. He'd be like, Mom and Dad, do you have beer?
Right in
Just
Mom and
when I
Dad's
think you
liquor
can't
cabinet.
be any dumber, you go and do something like this.
Totally.
And totally redeem yourself.
Stand by, going to air.
Stand by, Phil.
5,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by announce.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
All aboard!
And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
Turn to page 394.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountain?
That is so fetch.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
Where's my super suit?
Hey, Fat Lard, come get some dinner.
Well,
I am not drinking any f***ing Merlot.
And I'm gonna try to forget the fact that you're a girl.
But dogs can look up.
Oh, durga.
you tell me what I saw this woman?
This is the Polar Express.
Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of 20 Years for Beers. We are a podcast dedicated to rewatching movies from at least 2 decades ago while simultaneously enjoying a minimum of 4 modern beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And we are coming to you from just outside Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have just watched and recorded our episode on Spider-Man 2, but you won't know it because we're releasing this before Spider-Man
right.
2.
Teaser.
This is our 100th recording, but 99th released episode because we wanted to sort of flip this around a little bit. So anyway, there's nothing we can do about that. So this is the way it works.
Yep.
You know, over the time, we wanted to do that. So on this episode of a happy hour episode
Hey, you guys. Happy hour is from 4 to 6.
that is preempting our other film, we are re-watching 2004's indie hit Garden State. Garden State follows an emotionally stunted semi-professional actor named Andrew who returns home to New Jersey to attend his mother's funeral. As he returns from a 10-year absence, he must also deal with his complicated, to say the least, relationship with his father, old friendships that he may or may not be better off without, and a surprising new outlet for love. Garden State is all kinds of emotions coming out of writer-director Zach Braff, and was a surprising hit from 20 years ago. The film was written by, directed by, and starring Zach Braff. It also stars Natalie Portman, Peter Skarsgård, and Ian Holm, along with brief appearances by Gene Smart and Jim Parsons.
What are you listening to?
The Shins. You know them?
No.
You gotta hear this one song. It'll change your life, I swear. Oh, I'm sorry. You have to. You gotta fill out your forms. Conundrum. Think you could maybe listen while you could?
I can handle it.
Yeah? Okay.
Gold teeth and a curse for this town. We're all in my mouth. Only I don't know how they got out here. Turning me.
It's good. I like it.
So what are you here for?
What are you here for?
Waiting for a friend? You?
I
Oh fuck, that was nosy. I'm sorry. I'm so nosy. I didn't mean to be. I'm sorry.
No, I get these headaches. I just want to have it checked out.
Cool.
Come on, not my beer.
with our reactions and verdicts to the movie out of the way, we move on to the reactions to our beers that we drank while rewatching our subject movie.
And if you want to have sex with a disgusting bad brewer with a terrible attitude,
this is where we take a look back at our beers and give our expert ratings for our drinking buddies.
ugh, whatever. Hey, here's the truth.
This is Drinking Buddies.
Let's get weird.
Do you want to go? You do your?
You've been talking.
two?
I'll take over.
Yeah, I talk way too much on these. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you do just fine.
No,
Your
that's fine.
dulcet tones.
Well, somebody
are
has to
just-
host this shit.
Gotta keep this
They're
afloat.
gonna do this.
I had Fulton's Chill City Chugger,
Chill City,
which this time of year, nothing quite beats a solid, just like
lager. Yep.
Mow the lawn, toss them back. So had one of those, and it's a 4 for
Takes
me
like 2
in
minutes
terms
to
of the.
mow your lawn.
It's a nice thing.
It's tiny lawn. You're like, oh, I gotta be done in 10 minutes. Better have a beer.
Listen, my electric mower goes through half the battery. Thank you.
You're like Truman in the Truman Show with that like hand mower.
No, not-
that like a little electric mower.
There's a neighbor that does that, and I'm like, it sucks, man. Like, just it's 2024. It was a 4 for me.
Wow.
In terms of the style,
Yeah, I get it.
I will take that over like any other kind of like standard lager, like Coors or
It's
whatever.
a
I
chugger.
think
You can down that sucker and
it's
no
delectable.
problem. Yep.
And then in the Insight Brewing out of Minneapolis, they always have like a multi-pack IPA, but they change out a like 4th option of it.
Okay.
Which is really great. This version was their Thrifted Goods DDH Hazy IPA. It's a 4 for me. I find their IPAs and like it's not as good as the like Fulton multi-pack.
Yeah.
No spoiler or no surprise, but it's solid. All their options are really tasty, and this one was a nice addition to that. So yeah, they're double dry hopped ACIB was great.
And just every time I hear Insight and multi-pack, every time I think of that random, what was it, like 5-6 years ago, where they did that East Coast West Coast
Oh
4-pack.
Yes,
and that West Coast, or I think it wasn't the West Coast,
Yes, the
that was
West
like,
Coast.
what is
like
this?
yikes,
And they never released it again, as far
This
as
is
I'm
good.
aware.
Yes,
Idiots.
It was good.
Well, nobody accused Insight of being smart.
What'd you have?
I went with 2 Fultons, actually. I had the Fulton American IPA, their new just standard IPA they released for the fishing season here in Minnesota. Really just exactly what you want.
It's good.
Just a crushable regular IPA. I have 3.75 out of 5. I don't know if you were around 4 probably on yours
Around
when
there,
you had
yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
it is so good. You bought a pack of it today,
I
right?
had a 12-pack, yeah.
It is, yeah. You're just like, oh man, it's so solid.
Yep.
As with most things Fulton, you're just like, yep. At the base, I mean, I can't think of a single bad beer I've had at Fulton. Like the bottom of the barrel is like
Coffin
drinkable at
Dodger,
best,
but
you know.
Yep.
And then the other Fulton I had was shockingly something we hadn't covered, which is honestly one of the best blondes in town. We had never had an actual regular Fulton Lonely Blonde. We had a strawberry version of
I
it.
say with Legally Blonde. Wow.
We had the strawberry version of it, yeah. But it was not, I went through
That's
your
great. No,
your
the
list.
list.
There is not
Yep.
and I was like,
That's so great.
excuse me, what's that now?
What?
Yes. I was shocked that we had not had that. Lonely Blonde, short of, I would say the 2 best blondes in town are that and then the Hang Up Blonde from Bad Habit.
Bad Habit, yeah.
Those 2, they're so good.
But
Those
Lonely Blonde
ales,
is-
that Lonely Blonde is just, especially at a tap,
Yes.
like, oh my God. Just wonderful. 4 out of 5.
And this time of year,
Oh, yes. It's wonderful.
nice. And
And then what do we got tonight?
well, we are not too, ashamed to admit that as we were planning this evening,
Yeah.
we had to rechange our plans a little bit around
Yep.
Spider-Man, the timing and everything.
Yep.
Some beers that I'd got for that or for this to have got repurposed for that. So we are in our early 40s and we raided our parents'
That's right.
beer.
I live with my parents, and there's a beer fridge in the garage, and we're
We're
like, what do we
"Shit,
got?
We're out.
What do we
it's
got?
Too late to go.
Yeah.
And it was an option that we chose.
Actually, it's a good option.
But we haven't had it. So Sierra Nevada out of California, their Hazy Little Thing IPA, one of their flagship options. It's just a solid, for me, it's going to sound like an insult, but it's not. It's 3.5 for me. It's just a fine hazy, like mass produced. Like it works. It's nothing that's going to be amazing, but it's very like crushable, delightful. It works, especially we stole it from
in the last minute, right? And I will say, I guess for me, there's 2 ratings in here. It's 3.5 in quality,
sure,
but when you buy a 6-pack for like $9 of this, it's almost a 4.
Yeah,
like
for the quality, for the price,
you get a really good quality, and you get this beer, and you end up with like, as much as we love Topping Goliath and some of the other places, you get like 4 or 6 beers for $15 to $20, and I get it; they're not as big. But Sierra Nevada, they outright did this thing, and it was a brilliant thing over the last couple of years. They did it with a sour, this whole hazy little thing. They had the double version of it. They did a sour. They did they outright went out to make a good enough version. Odell, who did the Mountain Standard?
Odell,
right?
Yep. Oh,
same thing.
Very
like
good.
that. Just these giant breweries said, we're going to come in with a good enough version of this for under $10 for 6-pack. Well played.
Yes.
And this is exactly that. If I walked into a bar and I had some chicken wings or whatever, and somebody's like a hazy little thing, absolutely. So quality is 3.5, but I gotta respect these giant breweries of saying, we're going to put it for under like a good price.
Yep. Quality to price point.
Love it.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
This is a social network.
You don't have to be an intellectual property expert to understand the difference between right and wrong.
Where we take a look back at the critical and fan reception from 2 decades ago.
Mark!
As usual, Tim takes point on this, so take it away, Tim.
You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything. $1 billion.
IMDb rating is 7.4 out of 10. Which
really?
For those
7.5? Okay.
Which for those paying
7.5 was
will be for Spider-Man when it releases.
Yeah, eventually 7.5, but yeah.
Yes. So Spider-Man 2.
So about the same. Okay.
About the same. I was like, wow, that's really high. Mark Savlov of Austin Chronicle said Garden State is a mashup note to love that will speak to Generation Y as powerfully as The Graduate did to the boomers nearly 40 years ago. Moira McDonald of Seattle Times said Braff's movie is sweet-natured and skillful, but its biggest problem is perhaps one he wasn't prepared to deal with, his own performance. Or more accurately, the decision to place a deliberately flat performance at the film's heart. Roger Ebert...
Wow. Deliberately flat.
Yeah.
Like they went out of their way? That's a bit of a dick move,
like,
Moira.
Yikes. Roger Ebert had 3 out of 4 stars. Said Andrew's new emotional life begins when he meets Portman's Sam, a local girl who is one of those creatures you sometimes find in the movies, a girl who is completely available, absolutely desirable, and instantly really likes you. Garden State meanders and ambles and makes puzzling detours, yet it's smart and unconventional with a good eye for the perfect detail. And Academy Awards that year was up for nothing.
None. We begin our discussion with our reaction segment that we call Spotlight.
This is Boston, and the church does not want them to be found. So, they are not there.
This is where we highlight and discuss our top takeaways of any kind from rewatching our subject film.
We've got 2 stories here. We've got a story about degenerate clergy, and we've got a story about a bunch of lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry.
If there were 90 of these bastards, people would know.
Maybe they do.
This is Spotlight.
They knew, and they let it happen.
I actually, so for me personally,
yeah,
I found myself not taking a ton of notes in this movie. Like I really, I was shocked how few notes I took. I kind of was thinking it would be like a analysis, or I don't even know. I was just like, but I have some. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if I'll start, but I guess
please do.
Take over. Kind of similar to Spider-Man, which we just watched, but we're releasing first. So spoiler. Slow start to the movie for me.
Yeah.
Like it is a slow burn of a movie. Lots of moody moments. It feels like it goes out of the way for the movie moments. Like all these like moody sort of like things. I guess as the movie progressed, it was like kind of the point was to be this like sort of moody at the beginning so that it frees up Andrew Largeman at the end as he kind of comes down. I had forgotten how slow the movie actually really was.
Yep.
That's not to say it's a bad thing, because slow can be deliberate. It can be a really interesting plot point.
It's not boring.
No,
necessarily.
No. I was not bored at all in this
no.
movie. No, for sure. Even in the rewatch. And I can safely say this is one of the first movies that we've covered in 9,900 episodes that it has been almost 20 years since I've seen it. Like there are most of the movies I've rewatched more recently.
Yep.
This one has been probably 18 years, like a year or two after that I really seen it. And I was surprised how much I remembered.
Yep.
That's my brain. But it does start slow.
It was the unique experience of a movie that we're rewatching that I had such an affinity for, where when I went to go start it, it was like, oh shit, it's not in my voodoo.
Yeah.
I don't own this.
Yeah.
And it was like okay.
Wait, but I do. But yeah.
But I was like,
yeah.
wait, okay, so thank you, Hulu.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I did watch it on Hulu. I don't own it either. That's right. I watched it on Hulu.
I was like, I don't own this. And yet I was obsessed.
Yes.
So when this came out, I have like such fond memories of it. Like, again, so cheesy. Like, it just spoke to me. Like, I think we talked about that with Lost in Translation, even recently with Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah.
Like, that early 20s, what does it all mean?
Yep.
Figuring out what might be next in your life.
Yeah.
So I have a great appreciation and a really fond memory of this movie. Like, we talk about like movies that come out at the right time in the right place when it can just hit you in that right spot. So I recognize I'm probably biased. That being said.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
Watching it was absolutely a mixed bag for me of some really interesting moments that had like some like a good, just hit me in the right feels.
Yeah.
And then some really just insufferable pieces. I was like, oh God, like these platitudes that are like being offered as profound insight. I was like, oh God, like you're so stupid. Like you're 26. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like you're just so dumb. And so but it was slow. I agree. Like it wasn't boring.
No, but
it moved
yeah.
itself along. But
yeah.
So I'm happy we watched it again.
Yeah, totally.
But I agree. It's been probably close to almost 20 years that I've seen.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm going to cover this a little bit later in my verdict, I know, but I think we talk about this in the future in Spider-Man 2 of the like how much of the like I cannot fault a movie for not aging with me.
Yeah.
Like this movie came out written by a guy in his mid-20s, directed, starring a guy who on the up and coming, gets it made, gets an indie film made. He's not worried about 42-year-old us, 44, whatever. Like, he's not worried about that.
No.
Like, so I can't fault the guy for a movie maybe not aging, or maybe I don't feel like it hits me as well as it did, because I'm 42 now.
Yeah.
I'm not 20. I'm not 22 when this came out. Like, I'm not his age. I'm, and I think that's the hard part about rewatching these movies and trying to judge them. I don't want to negatively. I don't want to tell people not to watch this movie.
No,
because it maybe doesn't hit me the same way it did. Because you're right. When we were in the theater or watching this, oh my God,
yes.
In fact, you talk about the Eternal. Even Eternal Sunshine doesn't hit the same way this does. This one was
sure,
and the number one reason was the fucking soundtrack,
dude. Yeah,
right. It like Zach Braff, and we have this with Scrubs, and we're going to talk about Scrubs in a little while.
Yep.
But like, he knows his music.
Yeah.
He is a huge music file or whatever. And the music is so well chosen in this.
Yeah.
Not because the lyrics,
no,
just the feel of that music in that moment. In particular, with who's the band?
The Shins.
The Shins all of a sudden or whatever. And like at the end with the Let Go song and
Frau.
Yeah. Like, we talked about this a bit with Oh Brother.
Yep.
And Dazed and Confused.
No.
Because we talked about the Dazed and Confused, like how good the soundtrack is. But what I remember at this time was this was one of the first real times where the soundtrack was a character in the film, in terms of it was like exactly like Braff maybe in that moment of writing couldn't quite get the emotional like hit, and he knew a song and was like, we're going to write this. We're going to incorporate this in. And he even incorporates the Shins in the thing. Like,
yes,
the soundtrack is what to me separated this at the time of what really hit of us in the feels, besides Eternal Sunshine, besides some of the other films that we've talked about in the past. Just this was our music. This was our like time period. And now we had a guy about our age making these movies, and like it was like, boy, that hit different.
I totally agree. It was such a killer early aughts, like angsty, mellow soundtrack.
It still is.
It's fantastic.
We joked about it again. This is after, but you got Dashboard Conventional at the end of Spider-Man 2, and that's laughably at that time.
Yes.
But then
exactly
if I
thinking
Garden
that.
State, and I think all of these songs fit with the movie, is not laughable at the time. It doesn't seem forced. It doesn't seem corporate by throwing in whatever, that album is so good.
Yes, I totally agree. Like that. That's a great call out of like, it just totally hits in the right way where, at the time it was probably the first experience of like, this is the music I listen to that would capture these similar kind of feelings. The vibe is really, really, it's fantastic. And to his credit, I do think watching it, especially for, a first time director, it's really good direction. Like
visually and that kind of stuff.
Visuals and like how he has a clear vision of what he wants to tell. Kudos to Zach Braff.
Yep.
And I do think actually his later films, a bit of a diminishing kind of return. On some of the stuff. Wish I was here.
Yep.
It just didn't land. But this was still a really solid A to Z direction, the choices, the visuals. It works for kind of the vibe he's going for. So like it's like all these like senses, you can't smell it or taste it type of thing, but it's like the sound and visuals totally work for what he's going for.
Yeah.
So I give him credit for that.
You know what I thought of as I was watching it, and I was like, what this reminds me of is Alexander Payne and Election.
Yeah.
Like a guy who wrote, directed, he wasn't starring, but he uses negative space really well, and he sets up the scene setups just from a visual standpoint. And it might not be him, but he might be a cinematographer or whatever. But it is so well done. Where it doesn't work is, I love the visual of him in the shirt that matches the background, but then the next cut, he's back in his suit.
Yep.
Like, what I mean? It was a fun little moment. So there's definitely some errors when it comes to editing and like the real life world.
Yes. But
he just sits there, and the way they're sitting, like where they're sitting in the waiting room and where they're sitting, like in particular the boat scene towards the end.
Yep.
Like the setup of that
placements.
Yeah, it felt very Alexander Payne-esque, of just not in a weird way, but just he knew exactly what he wanted, and it would put them in this real situation. And at no point did I feel like these characters were out of place where they were, even when it was kind of quirky view and it kind of like felt weird.
Sure.
And the random slow-mo of walking through the hotel, like the very late, like all of a sudden, and the Method Man shows up. You're like, what's happening here? But like, that's the first time slow-mo shows up. I can't fault him for any of that because he's an early filmmaker.
Yes.
But he had a clear vision of the movie he wanted to make, and he made it.
Yeah.
And you got to respect him for that.
I do. And I think it was, again, it just added to the overall vibe that I was like, wow, this guy's got and we had known him at that point for
he was in Scrubs. Yep.
But we're like, oh,
that show.
Exactly. Like, okay, I can see what he's going for. Another thing that stood out to me was I really like or at least I can appreciate like the juxtaposition of Andrew's sterile existence.
Literally.
Right? And he comes home and his home life and everything was so boring and confined as he's coming off his meds.
Yeah.
And then interacting with an old high school friend and this new woman that he's interested in, and their home lives arguably seem completely chaotic relative to that. But every interaction that he's having with those individuals includes the mother of those characters. And I don't know that I appreciated it when I was first watching it, that storytelling device.
Yeah.
Of in his grief of having lost his mother, that he probably feels like he maybe lost her years ago.
Yeah.
Because of the disconnect. That these vibrant, real, very authentic, broken characters are having these strong maternal elements in their lives that it does really resonate watching it in terms of like the storytelling device of him having to feel like, oh, like to the point where then when he gives the hug to Sam's mom, and it's a longer hug than it might be like, oh, nice to meet you, like him kind of by proxy feeling that type of maternal instinct. It works. It works for me.
Totally.
It's heavy-handed,
but it's not
totally
heavy-handed
works.
though. Like
it's like I know what you're going for.
I know you're going for it, but there's no sad music. There's no whatever.
True. There's no like
They didn't-
swelling.
Right. They didn't make you think. And actually, I'll go you one better, which is then when you get to the end of the movie, he actually sees in action a father and a mother raising a new child in the quarry, and like this, like he now sees.
I didn't even think about that.
Right. Assuming there's actually a lot of parental figures around him that are broken early on, and then he sees at the end these two parents who are actually raising this kid in a weird environment,
totally,
but really doing it in a positive way. That suddenly, as he is sort of officially off of his meds, it hits really well. Like
that's true,
and that's not heavy-handed. That's just sort of there.
Yeah.
I love that. I love in this movie there are a lot of really good depth, like sort of like layers that don't get even talked about. Like where, you know what I mean? Like the Jean Smart character as the mom is a terrible mother.
Yeah.
But then when she leaves, what does she do? Kiss him on the forehead, says I love you. No matter of our faults, I'm going to say I love you before I leave the house. Right? That's so real to me.
Yes.
That's real. I mean, you know, I experience it sometimes in my life of just, you get an argument, we're not leaving without saying I love you. I hate to break it to you, you know? And so really well done without it being, and none of the parents are perfect.
True.
Along the way, you know? Yeah, I don't want to but I also don't want to give too much credit to the movie. Like in that
No, I got
sense.
some
I don't
problems
want
with
I don't want to go over the top. I definitely have some problems with the movie, but most of the problems I have with the movie are very forgivable. Like almost to you are 26, 27 making this movie, you're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
Before we go down any of that path,
cool.
Do you have notes on Portman?
Yeah. I do.
I mean, in a good way? Like, I don't know. I mean, like, do you think she's bad in this?
Yeah, you go first.
I think Portman's perfect in this. I think she's great. I mean, to me, Natalie Portman in this movie is exactly the type of role she was meant to play. It's like a grown-up version of Beautiful Girls.
Exactly.
Like, it is that awkward, beautiful
Yes.
girl who is just real. She's got the epilepsy. She's got this thing, but that doesn't define her. She's got the, like, I have no problem with Natalie Portman in this movie. I have other like in other movies she's in, especially the Star Wars movies, like she's definitely, that's more writing based than anything else. It's not great, great role. I love her in this movie. I think she's really great in roles like this specifically.
When you think of Beautiful Girls, like you mentioned, and for those that don't know, it's a fantastic mid-90s.
Oh my God.
So
it's awkward
incredible.
and doesn't hold up in a lot of ways, but my God.
Yes. And
I will admit, full disclosure, she's been my crush since Beautiful Girls in the mid-90s. Give me a break.
And you think of The Professional, Beautiful Girls, and this, she is the rare young actress who is playing well beyond her years.
Well, yeah.
Like,
and
have this,
Heat.
like, exactly, Heat, like old soul in a young individual. And so, no, I don't have any issues with her whatsoever because she was written, and it's not a criticism, it's more of like just a recognition of, we talked about in different episodes, the manic pixie dream girl syndrome in Hollywood. And Ebert even talked about that, where it's like, they exist in these movies. They're really not authentic in the sense of like you happen to meet some girl who's totally available, all into you, and has all these authentic foibles, but they're just endearing in all aspects, and it's just like a perfect encapsulation of like what it could be. And I don't know that I have I don't have a problem with that.
But I wouldn't put her in that role. I wouldn't put her in that category here.
I mean, she is like, hey, some random person who's got, like you said, she's got the epilepsy.
This is a girl who,
she's a chronic liar.
She's a compulsive liar.
Yes.
Who happens to find I actually think for her, she finds the person she's looking for because he's broken just like she is.
Yes.
Like, she is not. To me, I'm definitely filling in the blanks here, but like, she's a beautiful girl who didn't have epilepsy growing up. It was clearly it came on as she got this job or whatever, and it happened, and they made her do it. This is a late in life problem for her.
Sure.
So like, she's looking for other broken people to the point where she lies to him, and like she's embarrassed by this whole thing that she's got going on. I don't know. I don't see her as that sort of like savior. That's because she doesn't have a world. She does not have, like, and arguably he's got the better world for her. He's got the more money in his life. He's got more, like, he's got a way to bring her out. She's got fucking hamster, like, tubes
graveyard
across the whole house. She lives with her mom with a Christmas tree.
Yes.
And a African child who just showed up at their door one day.
Yes.
This is not a girl who has her shit together. And like,
no,
in that sense. So I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with that trope with her. I don't know. I think she's very real in her like existence, and that's what brings Largeman or Andrew out of his sort of like sterile world to say like, this girl can bring me out of this. And that's maybe where the trope comes into play.
Well, I think about like Punch Drunk Love.
Right.
When we watch that, it's in many ways a variation of a theme for me.
Okay.
In terms of like, quiet, subdued character who meets a woman out of nowhere and brings him out of his shell. And I don't have a problem with it. Like it works. It's a good storytelling device, but I think she does so much more with it. I agree. Like she elevates the material where she's authentic, she's compassionate, she's caring, she's quirky. And maybe it's a bias thing. I remember at the time being like, she's just fantastic. She's so good. But it holds up.
The animal graveyard scene.
I agree.
Like, come on. That's, to me, what separates this.
Yes.
And she sits there, and she's just doing her own life. She's doing her thing, and he talks about the mom dying.
She finds it
and
for
you
the
can
first time.
watch her face. Just watch her.
Yes.
It just shifts.
Yes.
Like, the emotions start rolling out of her, and, like, that scene to me that's the most heartbreaking scene for me in this movie.
Agree.
Where, and not in like I cried or anything, but I do think about that, like, from an acting perspective, you can just watch her.
Yeah.
Like, Zach Braff, I disagree with the bad performance part of whoever talked about that. Because the first half of this movie, he is dead to the world.
Yeah.
Medically. dead to the world. He was literally been like castrated emotionally for all those years. Like, and she just sits there and watches this person, and he says this in this cold way, you know, with like not a lot of emotion.
Like dismissive to the
it's factual.
hamster.
Right. It's just like, oh, well, my mom died. You know, and she just sees this, and gosh, she is so good in this movie. I have no,
No,
Natalie Portman's outstanding in this.
To the point where at the end, when he's like, I got to figure out my stuff and I'm going to come back. And she is so raw with like, that's not like, you don't have to do that. Like, just like, you should stay here.
It doesn't have to be what you claim to
we
be.
can do this together type of thing. I agree.
Yep.
I think I do think this is probably the first time I remember her in such a way being like, holy shit, she's incredible.
She's a great actress.
As an actress. Like she was fine before, and I actually value like beautiful girls. Like she stood out. But this was like, oh God, you're really, really, really good.
Yeah. She's a great example of a young actress who is, you know, we've seen it, we've talked about it, especially in America, with these young actresses or who can find the emotion in some way, but then we were amazed by it as kids. I'm almost like, I'm amazed at it as an adult that you can find this kind of emotion too. Like, she just sits there and on the steps of that airport. Anyway,
So, before I get into quibbles, I really appreciate Peter Skarsgård.
Dude.
In this, he's so effortless.
Yeah, he's so
in
good.
terms of the friend who's a grave digger, but just like a stoner dude. Like he just isn't like. It's hard to describe if you haven't seen. Like he's not like an actor. He's just very authentic, and I think that really works for the character.
Yeah.
To then it doesn't feel forced of like, oh, here's a friend we were together like 10 years ago in high school. Hey, what's up? Like, it's reconnecting, but he's just so interesting from a character.
Yeah. Skarsgård, man, I tell you, I want to, and I probably will this weekend, I want to go back and watch Shattered Glass.
Oh, from 2003. Yeah.
Which was, prior, because he was in it. And I just feel like, he is so good in whatever he decides to do. I get another actor like Melina in the future.
Yeah.
That we
true.
He there's just not a bad performance by him.
No.
And he doesn't bring much to the table here, but he doesn't remove anything. But then he actually gives you the emotional delivery at the end of this gift that's out of nowhere.
Yep.
He's really well done in this. Yep.
All right, so
what do you got? Wait, hang on. Do I have anything I want to before I look at your quibbles? I have one more point at the end, but go ahead.
So, and it's more of a quibble, but compliment. To Braff's credit, and maybe it's the casting director, really great choice to surround him with great, solid actors.
Agree.
Because I don't actually think he's a good serious actor.
No.
Especially like and I think it's a disservice to critique it for like he's so numb to the world, but that's the character. Like that's how it's written.
Yeah.
But as he starts to experience more and like come out of that shell, there were times, especially at the airport, at the end when he's coming off the plane, talking to her like, "Hey, that's a dumb idea. I don't want to do that." It's like, I don't know what we can do. There was like a Blue Steel vibe.
Yeah,
with his face.
His face is the problem.
What are you doing?
It's not his tone. It's not what he's saying.
He just doesn't have a serious
face. He doesn't
face.
have it. Yep.
And I feel bad for him as an actor because I'm like, you could do great things clearly with directing and like writing, but it's
he missed like he doesn't have it. He didn't
stick to Scrubs.
Whatever it is, and maybe it's the same big lip thing that we talked. Like there's something about his face that you just cannot. He doesn't have the ability to emote the way that you would think most actors can.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's just slow. Like everything about his reaction is just slow.
Yes.
It's awkward. Yeah. It's just really creepy. It just is. It is in Scrubs. It is almost anything he does. But that's just his face. It's just, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. It's like overcompensating.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah. But they did, to your point, okay, if you have that fault, now let's surround him with really good talent.
Yes.
Yep. And they
really
did.
great actors.
Except an underused Ian Holm.
I was going to ask, what is the point of having Ian Holm in this movie?
Literally any actor could have done it.
It's such a disservice to having that type of caliber of actor.
Yep.
Where he's a legend, and it's just like, hey, Dad, what's up?
Yeah, nothing. Nothing. He is cold the entire way through. If in bed at the end, he wakes him up or whatever. Which, by the way, I love that he's like, Dad. And he's like wakes him up.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, nothing. That scene could have been really well done with some more emotion, and it's not Ian Holm's fault.
No,
he does fine in that role,
and that's a critique.
There's nothing to it where it could have been anybody,
and that's I think a critique of the writing where I don't know that Zach maybe hasn't experienced that type of coming together type of thing.
He was more talking about it's more about the relationships with everyone else.
It's really unrealistic. To me, like he's like making up with his father, who was really terrible. If you think about him medicating his son,
correct,
for 10 years to the point where he felt numb to the world, and it's just like, hey, Dad, we don't have to be good. We just got to be okay.
Yeah, we're gonna be okay.
I forgive you. Like it was just like,
okay,
it's the most unearned scene.
Yeah.
In the movie, I think,
especially as two fathers here. Like I think you end up,
yes,
yep.
Which I didn't really particularly care about when I first saw it.
I agree.
But having it now,
again,
like
20 years on, that's not what we didn't think about that 20 years ago, right?
Because like, this
we
guy's
didn't have
been
a terrible relationship with our parents or whatever.
No.
Yeah.
There are times where
well, I didn't. You might have.
Yeah, can't speak to it. No. I just think at times it feels like it's screenwriter Mad Libs 101. Like Andrew wakes in house after night of partying to the sound of insert odd individual carrying insert item that would not align with individual. So hey, it's a person in a full knight armor,
which is so funny,
carrying a milk carton.
Yeah.
Okay, what can I do with that? Like it works from a
with balls on his forehead
oddity standpoint.
Yeah.
It's just like really like it felt really quirky, and then later when there was like such insipid lines, like not the "we don't have to be good, we can be okay, Dad," but like just speaking of the family in the quarry or whatever.
Yeah,
and he's leaving. He's like, "Hey, Albert, good luck exploring the infinite abyss. Hey, you too." It's like, and like he tilts his head back in the rain. I'm like, what is it? Like again? Really great moments, but these appearance of like profundity, I was like, oh God, it's so like 20-year-old angsty, like,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, infinite abyss. Like it just, I don't know. I felt like, or he says something like, a family is just a group of people pining after imaginary places or whatever. I was like, shut up. Like you look back now, and you go, you're a freaking moron. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. But I can put up with it.
I get it.
It's just like, but that's the balance of this movie, is that it's in no way perfect.
No,
it's really flawed, but yet really great in some areas. So,
have you seen Perks of Being a Wallflower?
Yes.
And I think what I was struck by was the difference between writing a movie when you're going through it versus when you're looking back on it.
Yeah.
And Perks of Being a Wallflower to me is one of my, it is unabashedly, it is one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's very good.
It's one of my favorite books, it's one of my favorite movies. I am fully biased and I recognize it. But looking back, so what Linklater did with Dazed and Confused.
Yep.
Gives you a little bit of perspective to be a little less pretentious along those ways.
Totally.
And that's where, to me, where Garden State, as good as it is and good as it was and really hit with us, maybe loses its lasting effects because it wasn't looking back. It was, so on one hand, I'm impressed because you were able to write that in the moment.
Yep.
But then on another, it does hurt it because you weren't able to then polish it and say, here's the lasting lessons I learned from said thing.
Yep.
As much as I hate Breakfast Club, same thing. Like, I don't like that movie, but there gives me some perspective of the past.
True.
And so for me, the one thing I will say, aside from that, is I really feel like this movie is a great example. You mentioned it early on, of a movie that just lives in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is not necessarily an amazing movie. It's not rewatchable as much as many others. I just I want people to remember it just as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is just, it exists. And I hope that people who are in their early 20s right now would watch this and be like, I can connect to this person. I can see this.
Yep.
Because it didn't age with us. Like, it's not supposed to. It wasn't written that way. Because a person who writes it in the past wants it to age for us, right?
Yep.
But like, I think I gotta give Braff credit of being like, I feel this thing, I feel all these emotions, I'm gonna put this on paper, and he gets this freaky movie made, and it made a bunch of money. Like, you gotta give him credit. Like, I mean, I don't know. I really, on one hand, I want to judge it, but on another, I want to be like, I don't know if I can.
Well, it's easy for me to critique some kind of, screenwriter, director of like, that doesn't work for what you're thinking at the time and place. And it's like, sure, but at the time and place when I experienced it in my life, it totally spoke to me.
Yeah, and I'm not going to judge it. Like, now, I mean,
well, it can, both of these things
in a
can
negative
be true.
way. I'm not going to be like, now it's bad.
Well, both of these things can be true.
Yeah.
Like, it can have a profound impact at a certain time in your life. Like, I probably talk about it way too much. Movies change when I had kids, before and after.
And this movie does hit differently from I never would have thought about the parental sort of,
Like, the kid blows up at his mom, frustrating.
Yeah.
And she gets, paralyzed for it. That's tragic.
Yeah.
And they send this kid, like, at the core of it, it's a trauma.
Yeah.
But when you're 26 writing it, or 20, like, when it's like, oh, I'm just like, he's pretty, like, cavalier.
Yeah.
With this, like, trauma that happened. So
yeah,
I agree. But now I'm like, that's really sad. So it hits in different ways, but I agree. Like, both of these things can be true, where I can so appreciate what it was going for at the time.
Yeah.
And then now go, you don't know what you're talking about. So,
right. Yeah, exactly.
So,
and I bet he would say the same thing, actually.
I think so.
I mean, as you age out.
Yep.
I'm going up there. I'm going to try it. I'm going to let the jury decide.
As we close out our spotlight segment, we come to our final takes called The Verdict.
If we are to have faith and justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
This is where Tim and I give our final verdicts after rewatching the film and decide whether or not the movie held up over the course of 2 decades.
Now you get out of here before I call the bailiff and have you thrown in jail.
This is The Verdict.
I said to hell with it, to hell with it.
Garden State is a great example of a movie in the moment. And that moment was the lost feeling that many of our generation had coming out of 9/11, and into a huge new world that we really didn't know out there. We really felt lost. Though the movie may not have aged amazingly well, the central theme of feeling lost in a great big world is timeless. The film is filled with quiet, nuanced performances and features a soundtrack that can only make you feel like an anxious mid-20s adult. It doesn't strike the same way it once did, because I have aged out of its target audience. But I truly hope it continues to find that audience, because Garden State is a really great film for a really underappreciated group. I have 4 out of 5 still, simply because of what it represents. Mm-hmm. If I were to be like, now in my life, it's probably like 3.5. But just what it represents, I got to give it credit for what it is.
That's great. Yeah, Garden State, for me, it's a well-intended and really well-designed mixed bag of platitudes offered under the guise of profound, covering the journey of a struggling actor returning home to mourn the death of his mother, but who ends up refocusing his life on what truly matters. Braff's directorial debut is filled with some really beautiful touches and some absolute cringe sequences, to use the term of kids these days. But the overall vibe and really, again, solid soundtrack. Saves it from being cloying and suffocating and glib. Portman and Skarsgård are really, really solid. And pretty much everybody else around them is great as well, which helps make up for some of the limitations of Braff in terms of his performances in the lead. 3.5 out of 5 for me.
Can we just talk about how great of a show Scrubs actually is?
It's like, it's unparalleled.
The NBC version of Scrubs.
Yes.
We don't talk about the ABC ones. But
yes.
Yeah, it is.
Those seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not a bad episode. I mean, there's not a bad episode. There's forgettable ones for sure. But yeah, seasons 1 through 8 are just unbelievably great.
And like ahead of its time.
Yes. Yeah. If you look at like
really
everything
struggled.
at the time was 3 camera, live audience or whatever. No, this is, Modern Family nowadays owns a ton to Scrubs and their multi-camera
Arrested
stuff.
Development.
Yep.
Like all these great shows now.
Yeah.
You think
The Bear is a comedy now? Have you watched? You haven't even watched The Bear yet.
I have not, but
it's
I
not
don't
a
think it's a
comedy, it's a
comedy.
drama.
Yes.
Like Scrubs at least is a nice mix of comedy and drama. The Bear is a drama, and yet it wins best comedy all the time. Schitt's Creek, you end up crying your way through half that movie, or half that show.
Yeah,
and you're like, yeah, because it's
I'd say, yeah,
Scrubs,
It owes to Scrub.
pre-Scrubs. Tell me a show that had that kind of emotional hit from a comedy, and I can't think of many. They're out there. There are moments in shows, but as a
that was a difference.
ongoing thing, it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
The exciting quiz program 21.
Our final segment of the episode is Quiz Show.
I have stood on the shoulders of life, and I've never gotten down into the dirt to build.
Where in our research for our subject film, we find some interesting trivia nuggets that we hope will stump the other and possibly intrigue you.
This is not McCarthyism. You're not here to expose for the sake of exposure.
This is Quiz Show.
Well, evidently certain of the contestants were given the answers in advance.
Cheating on a quiz show. It's like plagiarizing a comic strip.
I only have one.
I have 3.
Woohoo! Go ahead, good sir. You won't have mine, so I'm not worried about repeating it.
Braff worked for the first time with cinematographer Lawrence Sher.
Sure.
That's really good. Who would collaborate on all of Braff's other films, and he would also have long-standing collaborations with director Todd Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
And Sher would receive his only Oscar nomination for what 2019 comic book themed origin story.
The Joker.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's weird to think about him coming, like he didn't do much before this, and then Hangover and all those other movies, and then Joker.
And he did a good job with Joker. Yeah.
That's really good.
Another movie I won't watch probably more than one more time.
I'm happy to have seen it and never
maybe one more time I'll watch it, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I would rather watch Schindler's List again than watch the Joker.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's a bit of a rough thing, but not saying Joker's bad, but my God,
no.
Which I'm also looking forward to the next one.
I agree.
I'll ask mine. That's fine. All right, so we like our award show trivia here on 20/4. Of the principal actors that we know in this film, Zach Braff, Natalie Portman, Peter Skarsgård, Ian Holm, Gene Smart, and Jim Parsons, which one has never been nominated for an Emmy Award?
An Emmy?
Yeah. Zach Braff, Natalie Portman, Peter Skarsgård, Ian Holm, Gene Smart, or Jim Parsons?
Zach Braff.
Nope. He's been nominated for 2.
Ooh, Ian Holm.
Nope. He's been nominated for 1.
I don't know.
Gene Smart's won 1. Jim Parsons obviously won a bunch for.
He's got tons.
Yep.
Portman.
Portman has never been nominated for an Emmy. She's
Sure.
barely even been in TV shows, actually, when you think about it.
I guess
But
I can see that. Yeah.
Yep. There you
She's
go.
like, it's beneath me. But
yeah, of course.
Huh. Oh yeah, Skarsgård's done like lots of TV
Yeah,
shows.
random stuff. But yeah, he's actually, I think, only been nominated for 1, but still he's been out there.
Like The Big Sick or whatever. Not that.
No,
one,
it was a TV movie. Like a TV miniseries or whatever. Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of award stuff.
Hey, what do you got?
Well, kind of. But well, we'll get to that. That's the second.
Take your time.
That's the next one. Peter Skarsgård and Natalie Portman would actually work together again
Mm-hmm.
12 years after this film in what 2016 First Lady film.
Oh man. Is it Jackie?
It is Jackie.
Yeah, it was just like
It's her.
Jackie O.
Jackie
but
O,
Yeah,
yeah.
she was nominated for an Oscar for that.
She was indeed.
Yeah. Is that your next question?
It was part of it.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah.
All right.
Well, Natalie Portman would win the Oscar for Best Actress in 2011 for Black Swan.
Another movie I will never watch again.
Never watch again.
Yep.
Yet she would be nominated 2 other times, once for Best Supporting Actress in 2004 and Best Actress in 2017.
Did I name both those films? So
Yeah.
Jackie and then Closer.
Closer.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's a movie, another one I probably will never watch again. But really, I think it's a good movie. But yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, I watched it one time. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to watch this again.
No. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our happy hour episode excuse me.
Soon to be.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, this happy hour episode, our episode, basically.
Yep.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
On Garden State. Be sure to, make sure to go back and listen to our recent episodes on your favorite streaming platforms. Watch out for upcoming episodes on Spider-Man 2.
That's right.
There you go. Even though this is ahead of that or after it. Yeah, whatever.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
This is the only time we'll do this to you, I promise, people.
Yeah.
And then down the road on Collateral and Dodgeball, we want to say thank you for taking the time to listen and for clicking that like or subscribe button on your devices. Find us on the internet via the metaverse of Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and head to 20years4beers.com for all things 20/4. This has been 20 Years 4 Beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Well, somebody has to host this shit.
There was like a Blue Steel vibe.
It's like that's just his face. I don't know what to tell you. It's almost like he's just slow. This is not a girl who has her shit together. She's got the epilepsy.
But I don't have a problem with that.
Cut!
Good luck
with
exploring
the
the
abyss.
infinite abyss.
Hey.
You too.